Everybody, CW here, Card Wolf, because I'm always on the hunt for great cards. And today we are doing the first part of a video. You'll see both parts in this video. It's a grading video, and I'm going to try a brand new grading company. They didn't just open yesterday, but they haven't been around for very long at all. They're called Electric Card Grading, and the reason I'm trying them, I don't usually like to do new card companies and try them and all of that, but I really like what these guys are doing with the holders. Instead of just having sort of a bland sort of generic label on the card, they actually have their designers and illustrators create a sort of artistic label at the top of the card, and I really like the look of some of what they're doing, and so I want to kind of see what they do with some of the cards I'm sending. So I'm sending a big variety of cards. I'm sending 10 cards, which is not that many cards, but it's a lot of variety. I'm sending non-sport cards. They have a special right now on TCGs. So if you send in TCG cards, it's only $8 per card, which is incredibly low. And their regular price for economy is $15 per card, which is not super low, but it is lower than most of the other grading companies out there. So I'm sending in several non-sport and a few sports cards as well. And you can see it's kind of old school the way that they do it. Instead of filling out a form online, and sending everything in that way, they actually have you print out a form and write in everything there, and then you just send it in along with your invoice after you pay online, and that's how they do it, which I don't know, it's kind of charming to me. I kind of like that, and it makes me think that the people who are behind this electric card grading company are, it's probably not that many people. They're probably, people who are just trying to start their own business and take advantage of all the interesting grading that is in the hobby right now. And so I want to support that, and I really want to support the sense that there are other options than PSA. PSA receives well over 1 million cards to grade per month. I don't know how many of you knew that, but I found that out recently, and I was shocked in a bad and sort of disturbed, honestly, about that. I think that is insane. That is an incredibly high amount of cards that are getting graded. Now, of course, that number, there are things that can inflate that number, and maybe I'll talk about that at some other time, but that number is split between sports cards and non-sport cards, and PSA does get a lot of Pokemon cards and a lot of other non-sport cards. So you shouldn't think that they're getting over 1 million sports cards a month. That's not quite accurate. I don't know what the percentage is, and PSA isn't telling anybody what the percentage is, and that's their business, I guess. But in any event, I think there needs to be more options than PSA. The other big 3 card companies, including Beckett and SGC, and I guess the other one's CSG, a lot of acronyms. But the other 3 big ones each get about a little over 100,000 cards per month, which is still a lot. I mean, that's still a lot of cards, but PSA getting well over 1 million is just boggles the mind, and I feel like we're gonna end up with a lot of cards graded that really don't need to be or shouldn't be, and some very boring PSA holders that I personally don't enjoy. The colorful and illustrated holders that this electric card company is doing, I'm very interested in, and I think there is a very neat direction to take grading in, where you're getting, a lot of people when they grade their cards like to display them, and I think that this electric card company, grading company, is kind of responding to that idea. You're going to get your card back and you're going to want to display it, and why not have a label that is actually artistic and colorful and interesting, instead of one that looks like a urine sample, which is what I think PSA labels look like personally. But that's just me. A lot of people seem to love PSA, so I know I'm probably in the minority on that. But anyway, that's why I'm trying these guys out. I want to just see how they do, and if I like them, I want to maybe send some other cards to them and support them. So in any event, I thought I'd send 10 into them. And it's a pretty good mix of stuff. I'm going to show you the cards. Obviously the way I do this is show you the cards before they get graded, tell you what I think they're going to get and why, and then when they get back, we'll see how close I am to what this company decides that they are supposed to be graded at. And of course, I've never graded with them before. I've never even held a card that they've graded before. They're very new. And so I'm just kind of going by what I think the card should grade and what I think it should get, or what I think they'll even give it, with the very limited experience I have of seeing some of their graded cards online. So, this is what I think they'll get. It doesn't mean that's what they'll get. I'm not a professional grader. I'm usually pretty close. If you've seen my grading videos in the past, I'm usually pretty close to the mark most of the time. So I feel like I kind of know what I'm doing, but see how it goes with this new company. I got a couple of Pokemon cards that I'm sending in. The first one is this one. It is called Zinnia's Resolve, and it is from the Evolving Sky set, which is a pretty popular set. This card is not a super expensive card. You can get this raw for about $10. It's not a super pricey card, but I do collect full art trainers, and I am curious to see what they do with this in terms of carrying, up the illustration. Are they going to kind of, she's got this cape that they could add to the label and the blue sky and things like that, or will they do a portrait of her up there? I don't know what they're going to do, but I want to kind of see what they do with this card. I think the card will probably grade a 9.5. It is if you look at it closely, I'll show you again, very slightly off center. Very slightly. This border is definitely thinner than that border, but it's not much. So if it got a 10, I wouldn't be very surprised. The back is quite good. The back is really pretty flawless, honestly, and that's usually where you see a lot of the damage is along the edge on the back. And so I think it'll probably get a 9.5. They do give out half grades, which I also like, and SGC does that too, which is one of the things I like about them. PSA tends not to do that. They'll do it once in a while, but it's pretty uncommon for them to do that. It seems pretty common that the electric card grading company does that, and I like it, and so I think this will probably get a 9.5. That's what I've written down for that. The other Pokemon card I'm sending in is a little bit older. This is a Team Magma Groudon EX card, and I think it's a beautiful card. I've always loved this one, and it's from 2015. It's, for Pokemon, that's a little bit older. I realize that's, not that old in terms of like sports cards, but for Pokemon, I mean, that's a little bit older. It's from a set called Double Crisis, which is a small set that they did. And I just really have always liked this card, and I've thought often about getting it graded. I think this is a pretty solid 9. The front is actually very nice. The centering's really good. I don't see any issues there. There are some small, points where there's a little bit of whiteness, and I'll move this closer to the camera so you can kind of maybe see what I'm talking about. You can see that little whiteness there. There's a little tip, the corner there, and there are little other areas like that here and there on the card. So that's why I think it will get a 9. I don't think it would deserve a 10, maybe a 9.5, but I think a 9 is probably the right grade for that card. If you guys watch the channel, I also collect Star Wars CCG and have ever since it came out in the 90s, so I wanted to send in a couple of those too, and of course I felt like I needed to send in a Darth Vader card. This is a rare from the special edition set. It's Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, or DVD lots as the acronym would be for this card. That's what we used to call it back in the day, and I'm sure there are a lot of other collectors who still refer to it that way. But this is, there actually aren't that many Darth Vader cards in the entire Star Wars CCG, and as a result, they go for a fair amount. I think this card is really nice. I think it is not perfect. It is also off-center. You can see this border is thinner than this border. That's a little thicker one, and that is actually just on the holder, but there's, the off-centeredness carries forward to the back. There's really not a whole lot of whiteness along the border on the back. It's really just that off-centeredness that is the main flaw with this card, and so I think it's probably going to get a 9. If it got the 10, I would be thrilled about that, and I think it would tell me kind of how much this electric card grading company really weighs off-centeredness on a card. I mean, this isn't egregious by any means, but it is noticeable to the naked eye, and I think it should count off in terms of the grade on that. But we'll see how it turns out. This is a 3PO card from the Endor set, and as you can see, it's a foil. These cards were kind of tough to get. You'd get 2 or 3 of these in a box of Endor, and the foil cards had varying rarities. There were ultra rares and super rares, which this one is, and then I can't remember. This was the second tier of rareness. It wasn't the top, it was the middle one. And it's a beautiful card. I love this foil card. 3PO really stands out. You can see it's on Endor too, with the Ewok there and you know the leaves and everything. So I'm hoping that they carry the Endor theme up into the label and maybe give me a you know something up there that suggests it's on Endor. That would be really cool. So that's one of the reasons I chose this card. I also think it's in a very nice condition. This, you know, doesn't have very much wrong with it. It has couple of very minor surface things that happen sometimes with foil cards because they're glossy and they're foil. But, you know, I don't know how much that will count against it, if they'll even, you know, really count that against it. I have it down as a 9.5 on my list here. And I think that's a very reasonable grade for this. I think a 9.5 is really what this card is. You know, if it gets a 9, okay, that would tell me that they're very tough graders. If it gets a 10, that would be okay too. That would tell me that maybe they can overlook very minor surface issues. You know, if I were grading it, it would probably be a 9.5. This is the only card that I'm sending in that is, I think, a 10, and it's a Star Trek CCG card. I also have always collected the Star Trek CCG, though I haven't shown it on the channel very much. And this is my favorite character in all of Star Trek, which is saying a lot because I'm a huge Star Trek fan. This character is named Elam Garak, and he was in the Deep Space Nine show, which is my favorite show in all of Star Trek. And he's a very devious, mischievous, sort of very intelligent character, too. And I really enjoy his character a lot. And I think it's a 10. It looks flat out 10 to me. The centering's great. I don't see any issues with the back or the front. There's no surface issues, anything like that. So to me, it's a straight up 10. It's not a foil or anything. It's just, you know, a regular paper card. You know, this has black borders too, like the backs of the Star Wars cards. So it picks up any kind of, you know, damage or any kind of nick or tip that happens there. So we'll see if that gets the 10. With new card companies, new card grading companies, often they are a little bit hesitant to hand out 10s because they don't want the reputation to go out there as, oh, they're easy 10s. You know, they don't want that. It's kind of a fine line they have to walk because they don't want to give out too many 10s, but they don't want to be so hard in giving out 10s that people won't send cards to them. So to me, it's a 10. If it comes back as a 9.5, that's okay. I would be curious to find out if it does come back as less than a 10, what they found about the card that made them feel like it wasn't a 10. And I might email them just to ask and let them know I'm doing this episode. I was thinking, because they're having this company is having this special where it's only $8 to grade any kind of TCG or CCG. I was thinking what other CCGs I ever collected, and I also briefly and not very intensively collected the Versus system cards, which the backs of them look like this. They were by Upper Deck, and they came out in the early 2000s, early and mid 2000s, and they were all superhero cards, DC and Marvel. They got the license to do both, and it was a pretty neat game, and they did some beautiful cards. They would use art from the comics and use comic book artists to create art for the cards in some cases. And they did foils, as you know, all of these CCGs do foils, and they were the special, harder to get cards. And they even did some full art foils, much like you have with, you know, Pokemon these days. And, you know, one of them I wanted to send in, you know, was Batman. I mean, I couldn't resist that. Beautiful art. I think this is by Jim Lee, if I'm not mistaken. It'd be great if it would come into focus. There you go. And really quite lovely art. Just very evocative of, you know, the setting of Gotham City and, you know, Batman and the moon there. I think it's a beautiful card. And it's in great shape. I mean, I think this is, you know, the only thing I could find maybe wrong with this card is very, very minor surface issues, and they're not even issues. They're just, you know, a couple of things that you could consider maybe imperfections, really is how I would put it. And other than that, I really think it's a great card. So I'm giving it a 9.5, and I think, you know, it definitely has a chance of getting a 10. I think a 9 would be surprising, but, you know, we'll see how it comes back. I'm saying 9.5. This is the other card from that Versus system product that came out back then. It's another full art Batman card. It's a Batman villain of Poison Ivy, and I love this card. I think the art is really quite beautiful on this card. You can kind of see the foil as I'm catching the light there. It's Chris Bacallo art, and I always liked him as an illustrator for the comics. And as with many Chris Bacallo art pieces, you can't see the character's feet. Chris Bacalo is known for not drawing the character's feet, finding ways around drawing the character's feet. Humberto Ramos was the same way, and just seems to be a thing with comic book artists. If they can avoid drawing a character's feet, they will, and that's the case with this. But I'm fine with that. I think it's a beautiful card. It's another full art, and I looked on eBay to see if this was, what this was going for. It's been many years since I looked through my Versus cards, and there wasn't even one of these on eBay. So, that made me feel like, cool, I should definitely get this graded. This is not in as good a condition as the Batman, definitely not. Has very clear surface scuffing, and even some minor edge wear you can see a little bit of on the back. There's a white tip on that corner and a little edge wear down here and up here as well. So this is definitely not going to get a 9 or a 10. I think this will probably come back between a 7 and an 8. Would be my guess. I think it's probably a 7.5. I would like to get the 8, but we'll see how it is. I'm excited about this card too. Much like the Batman card, I want to see what they do with the labels. Are they going to, have a Batman illustration up there? Are they going to have Poison Ivy illustration? Are they just going to have ivy and flowers up there? I mean, what are they going to do for the art on the label? I'm really quite curious to see what they do and how it accentuates the beauty of the card, or if it detracts from the beauty of the card. And that's one of the neat things for me about the company, this electric card grading company. I'm just curious to see what cards look like in their holders, honestly. So then we get to the sports cards that I'm doing, and I'm kind of testing them pretty seriously on the sports cards. I'm not throwing them any easy cards. I'm throwing them 3 tough cards. One is an acetate card. It's Connor McDavid from the Metal Universe, and I'll put my hand behind it so maybe the camera will focus a little better. And it's one of the Elan cards, and I think it's a beautiful card. I'm grading this as an 8.5. It definitely has a little bit of edge, what I would call edge cracking up here. I don't know if you can see behind with my finger behind it there. It's really hard to spot on camera, I would think, but it is there, and I think they should certainly count off for that. It also has some very minor surface things. I don't think that it's major, but that's the holder, but there is a little bit of, I think, surface stuff on here. But it's a beautiful card, and I think it'll look cool in a holder, and I think the sort of physics thing going on in the background there should give them something interesting to sort of illustrate on the label as well, and carry forth this sort of leitmotif up there. And I hope that they do carry that forth and don't just try to do an illustration of Connor McDavid. I don't think I'd enjoy that much, but we'll see what they do. One of the other sports cards I'm sending is a sideways card. I don't know how they treat sideways cards with the label. Do they try to do the label sideways as well so you can display it like that? I'm going to find out. I haven't seen any of their cards graded sideways cards. They've all been standard orientation cards, so I'm very curious to see what they do. And this is a card I've been wanting to get graded anyway. It's a Mike Trout alternate image card, or image variation card is I guess what they call it, and it's from Topps Heritage from last year, 2022. And I pack pulled this. It's in wonderful shape. I think it's got a chance of getting a 10. It probably won't, and I'll show you why. I think it's probably a 9 or a 9.5. It has these black edges really pick up any little bit of damage, and I think you can see it there. It's got a little nick here and a little one over here, so I think that will end up making it a 9.5, but if it gets the 10, I'll be delighted. It's a beautiful card. The thing I love about this card, not just I like the image, but the image also is exactly the kind of image that would have fit perfectly in the original 1973 Topps baseball set, which the the design, the template, is what they used for Heritage last year. So it's a card I've really wanted to get graded, and I'm really curious to see what they do with the label and how they orient the label and what kind of illustration they put on there. Maybe they carry forward the wall in the background, the outfield wall. That would be pretty cool. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm excited to see that come back. I think it'll get a 9.5. Had to send them a vintage card, and what better card to send than a Brooks Robinson? I'm still, thinking a lot about Brooks Robinson. I've been putting his cards up in the background on all of my videos, and I'm going to continue to do that for a while because he really was probably my favorite all-time player, and I miss him a lot, and feeling pretty tender about it. So I had to send in a vintage card. I thought, why not send in one of my Brookses and give them a real challenge? It's a 71 Brooks. 1971 cards are very hard to grade, and they're very hard to get good grades on as a collector too, because the black on the card picks up any little issue, and this one is actually in really nice shape for a 71. It's quite nice. It does have some white, sort of a little bit of sort of just kind of, I don't know what touches or little dings there. I'm not sure what they are, but they're very, very minor. And I think it's a really nice card. Great centering. That's also often an issue with 71. Really nice centering on this card. The back is really nicely centered as well, as you can see. And a very clean copy of this card. There was no surface issues that I saw at all. The main problem with this card is this corner, and you can't see it in the holder, but this corner is a very weak corner. The other corners are generally pretty good. That's a really nice corner, but this one is actually very weak. It's a little rough, and you can kind of see it there, but more than that, it just, when you feel the sort of the integrity of the card, it's a little soft on that corner, and it feels much different than the rest of the card. That corner, I think at some point definitely got a ding at some point, and it looks good in the holder, but I think anybody grading this card would pick up on that pretty quickly. And for that reason, I think without that corner being an issue, this could grade as high as like an 8. But because of that corner, I would kind of put this card in at a 6.5, maybe a 7. Curious to see how they grade this. It's a really tough card, so we'll find out. So you're going to find out right away. It's going to take me about 2 or 3 weeks to get the cards back, but you will find out right away, and you will find out right now, in fact. And here we are. It is about a month later, and I have received the box in the mail. This arrived, I think this arrived over the weekend, if I'm remembering right. I think I got here like Saturday, maybe Friday, something like that. So door to door, me sending it and me receiving it, it took almost exactly a month, which is pretty much right in line with their estimated time for grading and shipping and all of that. They have a 15-day turnaround. That's 15 business days, so that's 3 weeks, and that was completely accurate in this case. And then, 3 days on each side for the cards to actually, ship and be mailed and all of that. They sent it UPS, as you can see. So I think it was maybe 4 days shipping, and I sent it priority to them. So it was 3 days on my end. So that was exactly 1 month, and that's completely in line with what their prediction was. So that was great. But the thing we are curious about is to see what their grading is like. I mean, that is the main thing, is do their grades sort of line up with what I would expect these cards to get if I were to have sent them to SGC or PSA or something like that. And that's what I want to see. I also want to see what their designers did with the labels on the holders. That is the distinctive quality about electric card grading, or ECG, as I think I will try to call them for the rest of this video, electric card grading, or ECG. And I want to see what those labels look like. If you've never seen this company before, it will be your first chance to see what their labels look like at all. It is my first chance to actually hold one of their graded cards in my hand. I've never actually seen any in person. I've seen the samples that they have online and things like that, but I've never actually held one of their holders, so we'll see how comparable it is to other graded card holders and things like that. If I can get into this thing. Got Mr. Kershaw helping me out, as always. Practice good knife safety and keep these blades out of the reach of small children and card graders. So it looks like my invoice or what have you is on top, so I'm going to block that and remove that because it has all of my personal information on there. I'll toss that to the side. We don't need that. And there's a sticker in here as well. That's pretty cool. I will definitely feature that on the back wall. Pretty nice to get one of those. Put that back here somewhere. And then a lot of packing peanuts. So nice to see that they packed these securely, and it does look like I can just remove these and will not give any of the grades away. It looks like they are packed in that manner, which is great as well. So I'll put that there. There should be another stack. 10 cards were what I sent in. And those go over there. And that is everything. All right, so I can put that aside. We have a stray packing peanut here. We will put that there. So here are the cards, and here's my list. And I'll get these rubber bands off of here as well. And put that there. And put that there. All right, so which do I want to get into first? There are the sports cards. I'll probably get into those last. There are the two Pokemon cards, and all three sports cards are there, so I'll put those up there. Maybe we'll do the Pokemon cards first, and then we've got the Versus cards, the Star Wars cards, and the Star Trek card. I think we'll do it like that. We'll start off with some of the non-sport cards so we can see what these cards look like. All right, so we'll start off with Pokemon. We sent in two, one a Zinnia and one a Groudon EX. That is sort of vintage. It's from 2015, I believe, so I'm curious to see how both of these do. And I will cover up the grade as best I can with my fat thumb, and there we are. All right, so there's the Zinnia. Zinnia's Resolve is what the name of this card is. And it is a fairly recent one. It's one that I wanted to get graded. I predicted that this card would get a 9.5 because to me it looked slightly off-center on the front. And so let's see what it got. It got the 9.5, so that's a really good sign that their grade is pretty much in line with mine. If this had gotten the 10, I would have been very happy with that, of course, but it did get the 9.5. Let's see that label there. It looks like they pretty much just copied the face and sort of that strip from there and put it on the label, which, you know, that is not as exciting as I had hoped it would be. I hope they would do something a little bit different than that, and so maybe we'll see what the next label looks like. But that's a good sign. The grade is very much in line with what I thought this card should get and what I thought if I had sent it, you know, to PSA, which is where I usually grade my Pokemon cards, I would have expected it to get the 9 or the 10, and so the 9.5 made sense to me. PSA does not really give 0.5 grades. If you guys send to them, you know that, but their grades are usually just whole numbers, 9 or 10. Every now and then they'll do a 0.5, but not very often, whereas ECG is... they seem like they're happy to give 0.5 grades, which is why I kind of went with that scale in my predictions. So this is the second Pokemon card. This is the Groudon EX, and I'm covering up the grade. And it looks here as though they also, for the label, sort of copied elements of the card. So, you know, I wish they had done something a little different there, but still, I think the labels are a very nice accent to the card. We'll see what the grade is here. I predicted a 9 on this because I thought that the back did have a little bit, tiny bit of edge wear there at the corners and at the blue edges. So we'll see if they give this a 9 as well. What is the grade on this? It is a 9.5. So I have no complaints about that. That is very close to what I predicted for this card. And again, you know, I think if I had sent this to PSA, it probably would have gotten the 9 because they don't really do 0.5s. So again, check out the label there. I mean, even though I don't feel like they made a ton of effort in terms of like designing something, they did make some effort here. I mean, they sort of, looks like they copied this stripe from the card, but then reversed it, which I think was the right idea here, because the grade goes here and then the description is over here. So I like that. I like that one better than the first one. I think the first one was kind of just a straight copy. This one they flipped it, which I think was the right move, and I think it's a nice label. These labels are certainly much more interesting to me than PSA labels, which, as you guys know, I'm not very fond of. I find them to be rather clinical. So, so far so good on the grading. They are not doing anything that I think is, you know, wild or out of sorts or anything. So what do we have next? We've got the Versus cards, the Star Wars cards, and the Star Trek. I'm going to go with the Star Wars cards next. I want to see what those look like. If you watch the channel, you know that I am an avid collector of the Star Wars CCG. I've collected it since it came out, and it's only been in the last couple of years that people have really started grading them. For most of the product, its lifetime, nobody has graded these cards, or very, very few people have, but just in the last 2 or 3 years, people are grading them now, which I think is great. I think it's about time that this set, this product, whatever you want to call it, has started to get some more notice. Very hard to get 10s in these, and the two cards I sent in, which you can see here, were Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, which is DVD lots, is how people kind of refer to that card in the hobby, and 3PO from the Endor set. And We'll see how we do. This top one I know is 3PO because it has the light side back, and the bottom one is Darth Vader because it has the dark side back. So we'll look at 3PO first. I predicted a 9.5 for this because I thought it had some minor surface scuffing. I thought it was very minor. Could get the 10, maybe not. Let's see how this looks. Oh, I'm still keeping the grade. I really like what they did on the label there. That's beautiful. That's really nice. I like that label a lot. Let's see, I predicted a 9.5 and it got the 9.5. So that's, again, really right in line with what I'm predicting for these cards is what they are getting. Really like that label a lot. In this case, they did something very different from what was on the card. They created sort of their own custom background and found another image of C-3PO and added it right next to where the grade is, between the grade and the description. That's really nice work on that label. I like that one quite a lot. That's going to display really well. If I decide to, actually display that card, that is going to really display well. Very happy with that, and very happy with the grade. The grade is exactly what I thought the card would get, so I think that's really quite good. Like that a lot. The next one is Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. This is from Special Edition, and I thought this would get a 9. I thought it's just a hair off center, and that there was one corner that looked maybe a little tipped. It's down here. I can still see it there. So I think if this gets the 9, I'll be, very satisfied with that. Maybe the 9.5 would be nice. We'll see how they do. Did a nice job with this label too. We'll look at that more closely once I reveal the grade. And it is a 9.5, so that's very happy with that as well. I think that's very accurate for this card. I think it's very reasonable. The only real flaw that I think I saw or that they saw was probably that one corner that had the sort of white tip to it. Really like that label as well. They gave it a similar treatment, putting different image of Darth Vader between the grade and the description. Nice purple and blue background. Goes with the card very well. I think that's really a great label. That will display really well too. I like that a lot. So beautiful labels, and the grades so far are very much in line with what I anticipated for them. I think I'll do the Star Trek card next. I'm just kind of going down the list in order. I don't know if you guys can even see the list here, but kind of going in order of that. Garrick is the Star Trek card that I chose because he's my favorite Star Trek character. He's from Deep Space Nine, which is my favorite Star Trek series. And again, on this one, I predicted the 10 on this one. I couldn't really find anything wrong with this card at all. So I had predicted the 10 on this, and it got the 9.5. So I guess maybe they found something, some minor thing wrong with this. And I kind of like that they seem very, very tough to get a 10 out of. I think that's really good for a new card grading service to be, showing that they are very discerning and that they will only give a 10 to a card that they really believe is a perfect 10. So again, I didn't see anything really wrong with this card, and maybe if I'm able to sort of contact them or something like that, then maybe they will tell me what they saw. There is a minor nick in the top that I'm seeing now as I'm looking at it in the holder, so maybe that's what they saw that caused it to get the 9.5. I like they did a similar treatment to the label as they did with the Star Wars label, where they put the character between the grade and the description. They found a different image of Garrick, and I think a good one. And I like the star field in the background too. That's really nice. So very happy with the overall appearance of that label on the card. I think it's very nice display card. If I decided to display that, that's quite a nice card. Do the Versus cards next. Got Batman and Poison Ivy. I don't know which one is going to be first, but we'll see here. It is Poison Ivy, and I like the label treatment from what I can see on that. Poison Ivy, I saw several things wrong with this card. Surface wear and edge wear, especially you can see it more visible along the back, as I recall. Yeah, there it is down there in that area. So for this card, I predicted a 7.5 or maybe an 8. And I do tend to grade these pretty harshly, I think. I looked at them very, very closely. But so far, their grades have been in line with mine, and they graded this an 8.5. So that's, a half grade higher than I might have given it. But I'm certainly not going to complain about that. And this is a beautiful card. This is a card that maybe I would display. I like the label on this. Similar treatment here with the character between the grade and the description. Nice green background there. Definitely like the label on that one. That looks really nice. Definitely a nice displayable card there, and happy with the grade. It's fairly in line with what I had thought it would get. Just very slightly higher, but again, I tend to grade pretty conservatively, is I guess how I would describe how I grade. And then Batman is the second versus card that I did, and this is also a full art foil for that. And I gave this the 10. I had predicted a 9.5 for this card because I thought it had some very minor surface issues, very minor surface scuffing, and they gave it the 10. So I guess they didn't see what I saw, or maybe I saw something that wasn't there. I'm not sure, but still, that's awesome to actually get a 10 out of this. I predicted a 9.5 and actually got a 10, so I feel pretty good about that. And again, that's only a half grade off. I mean, all of these have been, either right on what I predicted or only a half grade off. So that speaks to, I think, some very high quality grading standards at ECG. I feel really good about that. And the label I like a lot. This Batman image is really nice, and has a little Gotham City in the background, much as the card itself does. So really nice label on that one. That's quite pretty, and it's a 10. That's a very displayable card. I really like the label on that. So very happy with that. Now we come to the sports cards. We had 3 sports cards that I sent in. One was Mike Trout and Connor McDavid as well, and then a vintage card of Brooks Robinson. So we'll save the vintage one to last, and we'll start with the Mike Trout card. This was a sideways orientation card, and it's a card that I've been wanting to get graded for a while. I think it's really good shape. I predicted a 9.5 for this. It has some minor back edge issues here at the top, which I noted when I sent this in, so I think it'll get the 9.5. Also want to see what they do with the label, because it is a sideways orientation card, and I wonder exactly, how they'll treat that, if they'll try to do something with the label to match that. So they give it a standard sort of looking label, and they did kind of the same treatment they did with the Star Wars cards, putting Mike Trout's image, a different image of the player, between the description and the grade. And again, I predicted a 9.5 for this, and that's exactly what it got. So that, perfectly in line with what I expected for this card. And I definitely like the label. I think anytime you have a sideways card, it's kind of hard to display it, but I'm very happy to have this card in this holder. I think it looks really good, and I want to have this card protected anyway. It's an image variation card from the Heritage set from last year, and it's a card I really like a lot. So happy with that, and I do like the label on that. I think that's a pretty nice design on the label. The next one we'll look at is an acetate card that I sent in. I wanted to see how they would handle this. This is a Connor McDavid acetate card. I suspected, or I predicted, that it would get an 8.5 because it does have some issues with the top edge. And I thought maybe there might have been a little bit of surface to look at as well there. So I predicted an 8.5. Let's see how we did here. Wow, I like that label quite a lot. That's a really nice label there. Get that in focus for you. Again, I predicted an 8.5. I got the 9.5. So that one was a full grade different. And that's the only one that I actually feel like, I think a 9.5 is maybe not quite right for that card. And the main reason I think that it does have some top edge wear right in the corner there, and it also, I felt like, had, just a little bit of surface wear. I feel like a 9, I feel like would have been perfectly acceptable for that card. I think a 9.5 is maybe just a little too high for that card, which is not something people usually say when they get cards back, I know, but not that I'm disappointed. I'm happy to have the 9.5. I really like the label for that card. Really great in-action shot of McDavid, and I like the color match behind him. They did a really nice job with that label. Very happy with that, and you can see the card displays really nicely in there. That's definitely one where I feel like I could put that out for display in my study here, and I think it would look very, very nice. Like that label quite a lot. So the last one I think is the toughest one that I sent them. I mean, I did send them some very tough cards, some foils, some full art foils, which are very tough. I sent them cards, the TCG cards were with round edges, and obviously the sports cards are with corner edges. So definite variation here with the acetate sideways card. This is the one true vintage card I sent them. It's a 1971 Brooks Robinson. 1971 cards are very tough to grade because of the black on the front and the green on the back. It's a very tough cards to grade in my experience, very hard to get them right. I predicted this would get a 6.5 or maybe a 7 due to the corners and some edge wear there, which shows up very strongly on these. I feel like these cards, I see these cards graded by PSA, 1971 cards graded by PSA, and they are often clearly just off base with their grades for 1971 cards. They will either grade them much too harshly, or they will overgrade them and give them a much better grade than they deserve. So I'm really curious to see what they give, how Electric does with this. And so there's the card, and they give it a nice Orioles sort of logo treatment on the that's really nice, actually. I think the label looks good. I like that they gave it sort of that nice logo treatment with the orange and black background. That's really quite a pretty label, and I'm kind of glad that they didn't use Brooks's face there. I don't know that you would necessarily need that for every sports card, but let's see what the grade is. Again, I predicted a 6.5, and that's exactly what it got. That is really impressive to me. I think 71s are quite hard to grade, and I studied this card very, very closely before determining what I thought would be the grade for this card. So that's really impressive that it got exactly the grade that I thought it would get. And I think that speaks really, really highly of their standards at ECG. So pretty impressed with that, and I like the label a lot. Actually, that's a really pretty label. That would be a card I would certainly feel very happy to display. I think that's a real winner for them, and it's a winner for me too. That's exactly what I thought that card would get. So pretty awesome. So my overall feeling about ECG, I guess there are several things that I want to say as we kind of assess what we've seen here today and talk about what I think about this company as a brand new grading company on the scene. I think that they got the cards back in a timely fashion. They came back in exactly the time frame that they said they would. The holders themselves are very high quality, just from a standpoint of how do these holders feel. They feel a little heavier than a PSA holder. They also have rounded edges. I don't know if you noticed, that's probably not the best card to show because it's an acetate card, but show it here on the Batman card, which was the only card that got a 10. You can see the holders have rounded edges, which are actually really, really nice. They put sleeves on all the holders too to protect them, which PSA does not do, and SGC, who is my preferred grader at this point, they also do not do that. So that's a really nice touch. I like that a lot. The holders have a really nice weight to them. They definitely feel extremely sturdy and solid. I feel like very high quality holders. I actually, even without the label, I actually like these holders a little bit more than the straight up PSA holders. They have kind of a nice little design to them. If you look at this closely, you can see what I'm talking about. They have kind of an outline to them that is really quite nice internally where the card rests. That looks kind of cool. I actually like these holders quite a lot. They're very sturdy and they have a weight to them that I really like. So they get a very high grade for me on that. I like the labels a lot, actually. The first labels we looked at, the Pokemon labels, were the ones that I like least because I feel like they didn't really do too much to do anything new to those labels, whereas all the rest of the labels I think they did a really nice job on. I especially like the way the Star Wars labels turned out. I think those are really, really nice, and they accentuate the cards really quite well. I'm very happy with those labels quite a lot. I like the Versus labels too, and the Star Trek label looked good. I think the sports labels are nice. The Mike Trout is maybe a little boring, but still the color and the image is very nice there. I really like the Connor McDavid label, and I like the Orioles label for the Brooks Robinson card. It's nice because it doesn't distract too much from the card. I really, one of the main reasons and the real differentiator for this company is that they do labels like that. Nobody else is really doing labels like that. I think there's a British card grading service that does labels similar to this, but it's very hard to send cards from the US over there. The postage fees are really high. So very happy with the labels, very happy with the grades. The grades are very much in line with what I predicted for them, and I'm in no way trying to say that I'm a professional card grader, super awesome grade or whatever, but I'm usually pretty close when I send to PSA or SGC. I usually get it right on or very close, and that was the case here. So I think that speaks very well to the level of grading standard that they have. And the cost was lower than any of the other rating companies, which is a huge bonus. I assess this as a really successful venture. I'm really glad that I sent these in. I will almost certainly grade with them again for PC cards. It would be hard to get, a really great premium if I was flipping cards, which I don't do. But for PC cards, cards that I would display, cards that I want to keep in my collection, I like these guys. I think this is really nice service and really great price. Really like the labels. These are all PC cards for me, and they're going to display really well. I'm going to be really happy when I look through my collection and see these labels on these cards. So I give them an A grade. I think they did fantastic job. You look at their prices, and it's very difficult to beat. I have no affiliation with this company. I did not contact them ahead of time. Had a battery issue with the camera there, but I'm not sure quite where it dropped out. But my overall assessment is that I would grade with this company again, and I probably will do so in the next month or so, just to kind of see what they do with some other cards. Also thinking I might send some more obscure non-sport cards to them. They will grade, from their website anyway, that says that they will grade any standard-sized card. So you can't grade anything that is not a standard size, but any standard size card of any thickness is how they put it. They will grade it. So I may try to send something a little more obscure. I thought the Versus cards were pretty obscure, and they did a great job with those. So maybe I'll send something a little more obscure, and maybe send some more vintage cards or some more challenging, sports cards to them and see how they do. Another 10 card order, I think, is what I will probably shoot for. Very happy with the experience. I give them an A on the overall experience of this. The things that were different about this, again, I had to hand write out all of my submissions, which, is kind of old school. I really didn't mind doing that, but some people will feel like that's, a step that they maybe are less comfortable with. I kind of thought it was cool. I didn't really have a problem with that. You don't get email updates from ECG about how, where your cards are in the process. I got an update when they received my cards, so I knew that they had gotten them, which you definitely want that for peace of mind. But with PSA and I think with SGC, they will send you an email and kind of let you know, okay, your cards are at this point in the grading process. And then once your cards have been graded, I believe for both of those companies, you can go online and see what your cards actually got. Which I don't do. I find that kind of anticlimactic to know what my cards get ahead of time. I always like to open them and see them for the first time on the channel with you guys and do what I did here. So I really didn't mind not being able to see the grades ahead of time. I really don't want to see the grades ahead of time, but for some people I know that's something that they would rather have. You can see your grades once you have your cards, because on the back there's a serial number that you can go in, and they have a database of the cards that they have graded, and you can kind of verify your cards through that database, I guess, if you want to. So in those couple of ways, it's a different experience than what you might have with PSA or SGC or Beckett or what have you. But that's very minor, and that's stuff that for me personally, I don't mind. I think if you're grading cards for your PC, cards that you're going to keep, cards that you might want to display, this is a fantastic option for me. I really like the labels. The one thing, holding the labels in my hand, or holding the cards with the labels in my hand, the one thing that I would suggest to them about their labels is to make their logo smaller. I think that's a little big for the label to me. I wish that their logo were a little bit smaller, and I know that they want to get their brand out there and they want people to immediately recognize that this is, something that they graded, but it's a little big for me. It's as big as, if not bigger than, the player in most of the character on the non-sport. You see that's about the same size, and I don't think it needs to be that big. So that would be the one suggestion that I would make to them, is to maybe reduce the size of that, maybe, adjust it, give it a different position somewhere on the card, something like that. But that's a very minor thing, and I certainly understand why they want their logo to be out front like that. It's a new company, they're trying to establish themselves. So overall, great experience. I will grade with them again. I'm certain of that, and I look forward to doing it. And again, I'm going to put their link in the description box below so you guys can check out their site. The prices can't be beat. Their prices are awesome. The quality of the holders is really good, and I think they display very, very nicely. So it's definitely an option. I think if you were reselling cards, maybe that's not who you want to go with. You're always going to do better than, or it's going to be hard to do better rather than PSA. That seems to be the standard everyone uses. But, even reselling, if I wanted to, I'm not going to, but even if I were to think about reselling some of the non-sport cards, I think that this would be a very attractive way to sell them. I think that the distinctive label would actually make these more appealing to some collectors. So for that, but I think for sports cards, if you're a reseller, if you're a flipper, you probably want to stick with some of the bigger companies, at least for now, and until ECG establishes itself more. But if you're grading for your PC, this is an awesome option. I really like it. So that's all I'm going to do. It's a very long video. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I hope this was enjoyable to you. I had a great time going through these and seeing them, and I will be back tomorrow with Dorking with dice, and I hope to see you here then. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and thanks so much for coming out to the episode. And as always, happy collecting.